This started one night when I was waiting in the car alone. My parents were out getting groceries and I was playing on my phone when I heard a loud thud on the window. When I looked up to see what the sound was, I saw a man in a mask. He kept poking his fingers on the window and peeking through when I firmly told him to please stop. Then he looked at me with strange eyes, as if he didn't see me. Then he started banging on my window while yelling at me to let him in. I refused, so he started banging louder. I felt like he was going to hurt me, so I yelled, "Who are you? And what do you?" And he pulled the bottom of his mask and took it off to reveal his frightening face. It was a man with light brown hair, dark red beady eyes, and blood-stained teeth. At that moment, I could see that he had a knife in his pocket. I was praying and hoping that my parents would come out of the store, but they didn't. I was so terrified and alone, so I looked around the car to make sure everyone's door was locked. Thankfully, they were. I grabbed my phone to call 911, and that's when I saw that the battery was at 4%. I didn't have a charger at the time, so with the last of my battery, I called 911, and I told them everything. I was about to tell them my location when my phone suddenly died. The stranger began banging on the window even louder and harder than before. I think he was angry that I had tried calling 911. The banging was so loud, I jumped at every thud. I looked around the car for anything that could help, and in one of the car cup holders, I found a charger. So I plugged the charger into the car, and then I realized it was the wrong charger. It was my dad's Apple charger. I was so terrified. The police didn't know where to find me, and my parents still haven't come out of the store. Suddenly, the strange man disappeared, and I was somewhat relieved, but then I could see him in the distance, approaching my car again, but he had a tool in his hand. When it became more clear, I could see he was coming back with a hammer. He must have gone to his car to get it. He started banging on the window with the hammer. I wonder why the windows hadn't broken yet. Then I remembered that my dad had special windows installed, so thankfully it made some time to break through, but I knew I had a little time before they would break. In the meantime, I looked around again for something, anything that would help me in this situation. The stranger saw me looking, and the banging became louder, harder, and determination. The banging was constant, and my fear was growing, and the sound was piercing my ears. I looked outside to see if I could find anyone who could help me. I noticed no one was in the parking lot. No one was coming out of the store. It made me worried. Then I saw a large set of keys in the man's other pocket. It had to be the store keys. I then looked up to realize that the man locked the exit doors to the store, and everyone inside was trapped. That explained why my parents still haven't come out to help me. The man was still banging on the windows, but still couldn't get through. It felt safer. I went to the farthest seat opposite from that window, and he was trying to break. I was desperate and looking for any weapon to protect me. The only thing I could find was a pen, hoping. I felt hopeless, and so I waited and waited. The more I waited, the more damage was being done to the window, and I was so scared and didn't know what else I should do. As a last-ditch effort to get him to go away, I started yelling at him from the top of my lungs, "Leave me alone!" This made him furious, and now with more determination, He worked to break the window. It was so loud I couldn't even hear myself speak, and that is when I heard the first crack. He was finally getting through. He was getting closer to breaking it entirely. The crack in the window was growing. I regretted yelling at him to provoke him. He was using all his strength to break the window. I started to search under the seats for anything useful, and thankfully, I found the charger for my phone. I immediately plugged it in. When I looked up to see where he was, the man disappeared again, and the banging stopped. I thought this time he was going back to his car and get an even larger weapon. I could see him coming back, and I began to panic, but this time, I did not see a large weapon, but a note. He slid it through the crack in the window. I was hesitant to read it, but he stood there to make sure I did. Where I began to read it, chills came over me. It read, "I will get you no matter what, so don't even try." The note had what looked like red blood smeared at the bottom. The banging started again, and I was terrified after receiving the threatening note. I just curled up and covered my head and ears with my arms. That's when I saw another crack and another. In his raspy voice, he yelled, "Almost there." I was frozen in fear. I looked up to hear glass shattering. He finally broke through. He reached in to unlock my door, then took the knife out of his pocket, and just at that moment, my parents came and tackled him away from the car. When they had him pinned to the ground, my mom called the police. When the police arrived, they were putting him into the police car. The stranger looked directly at me with the creepiest smile, and in a deep, raspy voice he said, "Goodbye," and let out a murderous laugh I will never forget. After a few minutes, my parents explained to me that they were locked in the store and had to wait for the owner to find the spare key, and I told my parents that I was never going to wait alone in the car again.